Here's 50 odd things you can only do on the Bedrock version of Minecraft from 7 years of my personal experience playing the game. People focus on the disasters, but sometimes being unique leads to amazing things and entire worlds of new content. But first, we'll start with 5 goofy things, because Big Salmon is on Java now, but Big Boned Salmon is only on Bedrock. Obviously, the Bedrock drop is 3 times more useful, and so to balance against that, you might be attacked by a panda only on this version. That's right, instead of just seeing baby zombies on chickens, you might see them ride 13 other mobs, including the adult zombie and the panda. If I'm going to panda though, we have to mention armor stands are just objectively better on Bedrock, not only because they have arms, which they can hold things in, but also because you can name them Dinner Bone, or you can throw splash potions at them, which is pretty goofy. But what else is goofy is glass panes on Java. This is the difference between the model in your inventory, and the only benefit I can see to the Java system is you could hide a light grey pane in your inventory without anyone knowing, but why would you want to do that? Similarly, you might say, why would you want to die in creative? Because in Bedrock, you have no opportunity to do this. Falling into the void or using the /kill command will not kill you, and this sounds interesting and great on the surface. Why would you want to die in creative mode? But ultimately, the fact that we're always going to turn off the immortality switch by switching to survival is a reminder of why you do not want immortality in the real world. It is a cruel curse and definitely not something to wish for, which is a reminder if you ever find a genie. But you don't need to go to a genie to get a subscription to IBX Toy Cats. That's right, hitting subscribe right now will see you more informative videos like this one every single day on your homepage, and that will include crazy things like this next section, because after 5 goofy things, I'd like to show you 5 crazy things about Bedrock, because the far lands do exist on this version, and so too do the stripe lands. Yep, the stripe lands are real, and let's just say that things get weird there. You stop being able to move your character correctly, and every other row of blocks just isn't rendered correctly. And if you do happen to see some blocks that do render, you know, in the 50% that are there, well, you'll fall straight through if you don't actually fly. And even more interesting than that is what happens when you place down blocks, because let's just say they don't function correctly in lots of different ways that I think are very clear. And so what's really interesting is if you go to the stripe lands in both directions, you get the corner stripe lands, where as you can see, it makes a perfect grid. Sky Grid exists in vanilla Minecraft if you're playing Bedrock. But if you do want to reach the stripe lands, you probably won't be reaching it in hardcore mode, which has a unique animation on Bedrock, and also which disables certain settings. But the interesting thing about hardcore on Bedrock is it's much more serious, because unlike on Java, where you can cheat it from inside of the game, hardcore on Bedrock is locked to survival and locked to hard difficulty with no open to land setting. The interesting reason this is true is that Minecraft is always a multiplayer game. You can choose to turn this toggle off, but even with that setting enabled, the game still has no concept of a pause function. Here is me in the menu trying to pause, and although the game wants to tell me about the marketplace, etc., there is no way to avoid this. This will be changing in 2025 when the pause option is rolling out. However, right now there is no pause on Bedrock because the game is always multiplayer. In exchange for not being able to cheat anytime you want to in Minecraft, the render distance goes much higher on the Bedrock version of the game, although you do get an interesting warning when you set it too high, and that will allow you to see as far out as the end islands. This can be laggy on certain devices, and I certainly wouldn't recommend doing this on a Switch, neither would Nintendo or Minecraft. That's why you cannot do it there. Your max render distance is pitifully low, but on some Minecraft devices, you can see as far as the far lands with no mods or performance improvements required. Those mods and performance improvements do exist, they're just substantially less required on Bedrock because it already performs so darn well. What's probably much more relevant to the end player than simulation distances would probably have to be the structure code. It's written entirely different between versions, and there are all sorts of mistakes that you wonder if they're intentional, such as jungle temples and nether fortresses being made twice as rare on the Bedrock version compared to Java. However, desert wells are twice as common, and structures like woodland mansions are made from an entirely different wood. Sure, the outside is still dark oak, but if you look on the inside, instead of finding regular oak on the floor, it's birchwood. I like birchwood better, although I think at this point it might make more sense if it was pale oak planks. By the way, there are lots of other weird differences that happen between versions, such as... Wait, what? I think this is a sign. Wait, what is actually what I'm going to call this next section of the video, because here are 33 things that might make you go, wait, that's a thing, but are actually useful in some way, and so very worth knowing about, such as, for example, a fire aspect sword being usable to light not just candles, but also a campfire. Weirdly enough, this is obviously meant to be the use for a flint and steel, but the exact same thing works with a fire aspect book, and what's incredible about this is this works for TNT as well. You can light a TNT using your fire aspect sword, and even more weirdly, you can light TNT using a fire aspect book, and so if you want to have a flame keeping device on you that has infinite durability, the fire aspect book is apparently much better than the flint and steel. Next up we have cauldrons. Did you know cauldrons can store potions in the Bedrock version? This is handy by itself because you can fill a cauldron with potions to store lots of it in one block, but even more incredible is the fact that this means that naturally spawned witch huts are also different because their cauldrons come with a potion built in. So if you want a potion of swiftness, you can get it very early on in Bedrock because you don't need to brew it yourself, it spawns naturally. The same with many other potions. By the way, if you do try to take one of these potions, and if you try to put it into a dyed water pot, then it won't go very well. But yeah, you can dye the watering cauldrons, and you can actually dye it multiple colors, giving you this beautiful color palette that is exclusive to Bedrock for reasons, I guess? Speaking of reasons, I didn't know that there was any reason to this, but you can actually use flowing water to fill cauldrons. So here is me making some water flow in, then making it flow out. All of this is now filled with water, which is kind of incredible if you ask me. Speaking of incredible, let's now move onwards to the snow. Snow is different between Bedrock and Java. Snow will actually allow you to snow log all of these flowers, and also if it happens to snow while you're in a wintry biome, then the leaves of a tree will turn white. Very, very fun if you ask me. Also fun is redstone. This is one of the most staggering differences. Pistons can push container blocks because they have much stronger arms. This is a very nice difference if you ask me, but it's not the only redstone difference. Here is a fun note block one. Honeycomb blocks will be used with note blocks, and they can create the same sounds as when using clay. So here's an example. Really nice, right? But yeah, similarly, tridents can be dispensed on Bedrock rather than just being dropped. Here's me flinging a trident backwards and forwards to make a note block sound. Very, very lovely. Super fun, and indeed, tridents play a big part in Bedrock Redstone, partially for that reason. Buttons can hold water and lava in place, very, very goofy, and sugarcane can be bone mealed. For some reason, you can tell people all of these things before and they go, yeah, well, you know, Bedrock's still worse than Java, right? But you show them this and wow, you know, everyone goes crazy all of a sudden. This is a big difference maker, and it means that those bones that you get from the big salmon on the Bedrock version only can go a lot further into getting you sugarcane, and so getting cartographer villages is much easier, which is if you want to speedrun a trial chamber, it's better on Bedrock. Comparators can be placed on walls and fences. This is one I didn't know until just now. Look at this. It's very, very goofy, very, very wild, but I wanted to include it in this video alongside the armor stand. That's right. I've mentioned a lot of things about the armor stand, including the fact that they stack up to 64, by the way, but did you know you can change their position? You can do it manually by crouching and then, you know, clicking on it, I guess is the equivalent, but also you can do it with redstone. Why is this not a thing on Java? Because dancing armor stands is just a step too far for those developers. We also have the fact that bridging works differently. This is by far the best benefit, if you do it correctly, that is. So let me show you this one. My controller disconnected. Great benefit of Bedrock. If you want to build out in front of you, you don't have to do one of the old Java places, which is, to be fair, with Smith Sneak, a lot easier, but instead you just place the block in front of you. This is spanning from the old Pocket Edition days, where it would be hard to do one of these without dying, and it's a feature found in every Bedrock version for every Bedrock control system. So here's me on a controller doing the same thing to place some blocks out in the air, and here's me doing the same but on a keyboard and mouse. Oh, by the way, here's another incredible difference. Structure blocks have huge differences on Bedrock, including a large number of exclusive features, such as if we jump into creative here, I can show you that you can preview what the structure is going to look like and what area you're placing it into. This is really fun by itself, but here's the other fun one. Structure blocks have an animation feature. So if we activate that structure block over there, it will slowly animate in the terrain, and so wow, look, here is the rest of the guide mode for you. Isn't this nuts? I think it's nuts, personally. Speaking of nuts, this is a fallen tree. They generate across forests and taiga on Bedrock, and pillager outposts can generate in snowy taiga, sunflower plains, taiga hills, and snowy taiga hills, but only on Bedrock. So to make up for our lack of nether fortresses required to build the game, we actually don't just get more desert wells, we get more pillager outposts because they technically spawn in more biomes. We also get the large mushrooms that generate in swamps more often, we get snow layers generating in frozen biomes, and we get desert wells being like I said, twice as common. Isn't that so good? Desert wells, pillager outposts, and mushrooms? This certainly makes up for the lack of fortresses. Although, more seriously, the thing that might help you with the lack of fortresses is that weapons do not have a cooldown, unlike on Java. So if I throw away... Oh, I'm still in creative. If I show you right here, myself picking up a diamond sword and a diamond axe and a diamond shovel, I can swing these as much as I like and they'll be fully effective. I guess we could prove that actually. Here's me swinging it and then here's me hitting a chicken, still doing full damage rather than partial damage. That is an incredible difference and it makes the mace a much more usable weapon on Bedrock. Also, cross-platform, I guess, technically. Did you know that Bedrock players are able to play together on a variety of platforms? Some platforms include the Xbox, the PlayStation, there's one around here somewhere, and indeed the Nintendo Switch. That is what the Switch looks like right now. Soon to be the Switch 2, you might say. But yeah, being able to play with everyone across all the devices is incredible. And yeah, I think that is one of the big benefits of Bedrock if you have a friend who is on one of those. Speaking of on one of these places, grass blocks can be composted. This is just a weird, goofy difference. I feel like you would never do this unless you had a real excess of grass from silk touching a biome you destroyed, and you really needed to get rid of it and turn it into bone meal, but you could do it. So the composter, it's better. The flowers, what is this actually? Bone mealing, oh, this is actually the game changer. Why would you want more bone meal on Bedrock? Well, let me show you. If you just use a bone meal on the single flower that you have, you'll get more of that one flower. This is genuinely such a game changer. Rather than having to bone meal the ground and getting that, you bone meal the specific flower you want and you get more. I actually recommend if you're going to do this, that you dig the block down below it, and then we'll dig this straight back up. And if you place it in a little hole, for some reason, it just seems to be a bit more effective. I have no idea what the internal logic is, but if you want to get lots of a flower, place it in a hole and bone meal it. Also, wet sponges placed in deserts and badlands will dry the sponges. Skeleton horses can be ridden without a saddle. Honestly, I feel like this is a bug that has just been left in the game, but it's a cool bug, not having to saddle this guy. Does he even have a space for a saddle? Apparently not. But yeah, I think that's very interesting. Also, cakes will stack to 64. I'll be honest, this is just one that's fun. It's a shame you can't compost your cakes when you... Wait, you can compost your cakes? Which is great, because they stack to 64. You should not be composting your cakes, you should be eating them, but if you didn't want to eat them, you could write about them, because you have twice the pages that you can see in a book at once. Also, there's the light blocks. These are exclusive to commands, but if you wanted to grab them, you can, allowing you to light a space up. It's very weird to see. Nether stars will not despawn if dropped. Super fun, if you ask me. And also, the wither, which you use to get them, is substantially harder. So, ignoring the difference in health, which, by the way, on Bedrock can be twice as high as Java, at half health on Bedrock, the wither will summon 3 wither skeletons and dash their way towards the target. And that basically, it's terrifying. But, you know, actually, if I'm in creative, I can show you this anyway. Rip this world, because, you know, as much as I'd love to show you one last beautiful feature, we'll let the wither go in and say what he thinks of my big salmon friend here. So yeah, the wither charges at you and can do ridiculous amounts of block destruction damage, and so keep that in mind. The Bedrock wither is a big pain by comparison. It makes the Java wither look like I don't know, an offensive word that implies not very good at things. Speaking of not very good at things, let's now end our little section on 33 fun things you should know to go into 7 key bugs to watch out for, because there are some seriously weird behaviors that only apply to Bedrock that you'll really want to watch out for, like the minecarts. Minecarts just do not have any collision with the player on this version, and that is very dangerous because it means you can't stop them. If you're worried about stopping your minecarts, you don't need to be, but conversely, if you really need to stop it, make sure you use a sword or a mace or something like that, because otherwise it's not going to work. Something interesting and sort of similar, just something to watch out for, is the fact that if you pick block a piston using the advanced pick block, i.e. the control key, then you'll get the piston plus some data, which can then give you an immediately activatable piston. This is probably useful for something, but it actually is most interesting to me because you can use it to just immediately do weird things to blocks. So if you wanted to, for example, you could immediately delete as you can see right there, a chest, and if you wanted to go even crazier, let's add the most indestructible item in Minecraft. Let's place one of these down, and then let's try that again, and let's see what happens here. Oh, it's gone. So if you don't want to delete your Bedrock, make sure not to do that. and or vice versa. Next up, we have the fact that if it's nighttime and you're in any of the cold tundra biomes, Minecraft will only spawn in strays. Again, this is one of those things where some data values are just set oddly in Bedrock, and there is no spawning capability for any other mob, so all you'll find is strays, and apparently rabbits too. But strays are the only hostile mob that spawn here, which can be a great thing if you're looking for their slowness arrows, but it can also be the worst thing on the planet for basically everything else. And speaking of skeletons, if you are in a soul sand valley, watch out, because soul sand is 15/16 of a block tool, which is taller than lava on Java, but let me show you something fun. So here's what happens if I crouch over lava while on a piece of sand, but if I go over it on soul sand, even though as you can see I'm not going into it, I will light on fire because technically speaking my feet are inside of it. This is a very, very strange bug, and it means that if you're, say, running and jumping across this, you're going to end up inevitably taking damage because the edge of the block is not the edge of where you'll take damage on soul sand. Also, a similar damage prevention bug is that if you are trying to go underwater, you can't just avoid it using a door. I have a video called How to Breathe Underwater, and there's a lot of Java comments saying you just use a door, but doors waterlog on Bedrock, and I'm really confused by the fact that they don't on Java, which is where my final thing is going to come in today, because if you are someone who believes that the Java way is the only way, then one of the biggest shocks when you move over to Bedrock is what happens when you go to the Nether, because going above the roof of the Nether is in fact a bug on this version, which means if you try to build anything here, the game yells at you basically as loudly as it can, saying, "No, that's a bug! Don't you dare do that in the Nether dimension," meaning this entire area is off limits. Every now and then there's a bug that allows you to come up here, however, there's no way you can build anything or do anything here, making a lot of Java farms just not possible on Bedrock. And what do we get in exchange for this being technically classified as a bug for no good reason? Well, the ceiling of non-Nether waste biomes actually have the blocks that the floor is meant to have, and so you can find more soul sand here. Wait, is that's an improvement? Yep, okay, apparently it is. So there is 50-ish unique things about Bedrock when compared to Java. I hope you enjoyed this video, a little bit of a mix of the normal Ultimate Guide style and the other type of videos we make on this channel. If you did like it, then, you know, there's a button for that I've heard. And if you really liked it, then, you know, smash the button twice. That's what you do when you really like a video, and I hope that you'll enjoy this one, because I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.